something or the bottom down in there and all that. So I was already a little bit. Trust me, I had everything locked in and cinched down and everything, 'cause I had already done climbed past my comfort range and all that kind of stuff. Of course, I ain't even thought about shooting up till now. I've just been taking it all in. And so it got a little bit later, and a few more does come by pretty close and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, the thing about it is, if you ever on door patrol on somebody else's place, you want to make sure it's a doe. You know, uh, I mean, not that you can't tell, but there's sometimes you really can't tell and all that kind of stuff. So I was looking for a big old doe by herself that couldn't be a part of a pack that was trying to get out in the field, because that's kind of what they did. They kind of just jetted right by my little location and got on out in the field, and evidently they felt more comfortable out there or something. I don't know. But so I'm looking for a doe, and this is all going to end up coming back to shot placement. And so I'm sitting up there and everything. So I decided, I used to always spend about the last hour in the stand. I'd just stand up. It was a lot easier to be stood up than it was to be trying to stand up and everything like that when the deer showed up. I just stand up, lean upside the tree, and just kind of hang out. And so I'd already stood up, so it was getting on pretty late, and there was probably two or three different wards come through, and it just nothing was really right and all that. And so rather than make a mess, I would just as soon pass on the whole opportunity as to have them have to deal with me outside of the box, you know. And so I waited a little bit longer, and here come these two or three does together, and they didn't have no little ones. They were all big size animals. And so I had done got the binoculars out, and I made sure they was all slick headed when they were still pretty good ways away. And I kind of focused in on them because they looked like they had done took the path of sycamores that I was on. Like they plant them sycamore trees in rows, and so the deer get between them rows. And of course, it's all clean out there, and of course the deer going, just go down there, and there was some old privet hedges and all that done growed up down through there. So it looked like one was gonna fool around, and so she come on up there, and they kind of split up when they got down there where I'd been around the bottom of the tree. I'm sure they could smell me down there where I had put the bow on and everything like that. And this one got kind of squared away and turned around and everything just right. And I went to draw the bow, and I eased the bow on back and got settled down on her, and I was so high that my pendulum, that was back when I shot a pendulum sight, I so high my pendulum was all out of whack. I didn't realize how out of whack it was, but I let her turn around into where she got just right, and I could line that line up, the 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 vertical crosshair in the thing. It wasn't a Keller pendulum sight I was shooting. It was some other kind of pendulum. And so anyway, I had that line running right up and down her spine, and I aimed for right down through her shoulder blade, meaning for it to come out right at her brisket right there. And I turned it loose, and when I turned it loose, I seen the arrow some kind of way. The arrow took her right through the neck, and but it was all in line. So it took a windpipe and or whatever that artery is, a carotid artery. It took all that out when that broadhead went through there and everything else. And so she bashed out of there, and of course I could see good blood, coming from her and everything. And she went on around through there, and then she crashed down over there. And so then I learned my next thing about Willow Point, and that was the track dogs they had over there. Those track dogs were phenomenal. I mean, I did exactly what they told me to do. I marked where the air was. I thought I heard her go down, but I wasn't so sure, and I wasn't gonna go walking around over in there and not know what I was doing and everything. And so I just marked the air real good, and of course the air was soaked in blood, and I could see the blood leading up them sycamore leaves. They about big as a paper plate, and so I could see the blood going on up through there and everything. And um, I went back to the lodge, and that evening, you know, when they got ready to go, we of course wanted to go so that we could see the whole process and everything else. Of course, we ended up filming a lot of it and stuff like that. We didn't film this particular doe at all or anything like that. Um, but as far as shot placement goes, what you got to remember is the higher you get in the tree, that angle really affects you. So if you know you're going to be in a stand to where you're really high, a lot of times your arrow is going to fly high. It's some kind of rule like that. I don't know exactly how it works and all that kind of stuff, but I know that I had outclumb how much my pendulum would calibrate for and everything. But anyway, they carry them dogs, and them dogs wear a little bell. And the first time I seen a dog really get a deer uh, that was a ways away. It was pretty impressive because the man just stood there, and he turned the dog loose, and we stood there, and way off through the woods, you wouldn't even associate it with the animal right there. We heard brrrr, and he started trotting along, headed that direction, and of course the dog had the deer down. The dog had the deer dead by the time we got there. Um, it was a big old lab that they used. They used a lot of labs over there and everything. And so, anyway, it took them about all of 30 seconds to find my deer. I mean, I was still trying to tell what happened, and they were listening to the bell, and they just cut right across through there. The deer didn't go nowhere. She was bleeding pretty good when she went down, and all that kind of stuff. So this is a long story about shot placement to lead to this. Me and Hank Hearns, the man that run Willow Point Island at that time, we got to be real good friends and spent a lot of time hunting together and a lot of time in a tree stand together. And so one afternoon, there was a cold front coming through there, and uh, all that kind of stuff. Deer were kind of moving around, and I was getting kind of antsy. I wanted to contribute, so I wanted Hank to be on the tape too, and so I wanted him to shoot a doe. And so we were sitting up there, and I said, "What about this one?" We were on like an oak tree, one of the few oaks that was on that island. And I said, "What about this one?" And he'd stand around there and he'd look around. And he'd kind of ignore me. He was a little bit older than me, had a lot more experience than me, and he'd let go. I said, "What about this one coming around up under here?" He'd look around and wasn't never. I said, "Maybe he just don't want to kill it though." And so I told him, I said, "I tell you what I do." I said, you ain't gonna have to do nothing." I said, "I'll get it in the truck. I'll skin it for you. I'll do everything. I cut it up." And he just kept sitting around there and this and that and other. And I said, "Well, what about these coming over here?" And he just kept on keeping on like he was doing. And so I finally just give up. I figured we was gonna have to see a monster buck, or we wasn't gonna get us no deer that evening or nothing, 'cause he wasn't gonna shoot it nothing. And so I finally asked him. I said, "What's wrong with all this?" He said, "Ain't one of them got right yet." And I said, "Well, to me, it looked like several had done got right, you know." And I'll never forget this. He was standing, well, he was actually sitting down. And of course, I said, "I done pretty well give up the fact we was going to kill one, you know." And he leaned around and he looked up at the tree. I mean, he took his finger and he pointed right down at the ground. He said, "When I shoot one, it's going to be right there. And I'm going to put him in the truck 99% of the time." And so I've thought a lot about that over the years, because I've seen everything happen. You know, I've seen people make some tremendous shots at 30 yards and 35 yards, and I've seen some people make some tremendous messes at 25, 35 yards. But Hank Hearn stayed true to who he was. He said, he pointed at the ground. I'll never forget that. He pointed at the ground. He said, "When I shoot one, he gonna be right there, and I'm gonna put him in the truck 99% of the time." And believe it or not, that's one of the lessons that's really, really hung with me over the years, is instead of trying to force something to happen or make something to happen, is to, a lot of times, if you just bide your time and just wait him out a second or two, you're going to be presented with a far better shot opportunity than you would have been presented with if you tried to rush everything. And it gets to the point, the older you get and the more you see and the more you do and the more you do, if it ain't right, it ain't right. In other words, I can tell you when I'm looking through a rifle scope, I can tell you pretty quick. I can say I can't, and there's no crime in saying I can't hold it. I cannot hold it still enough right here. There's no crime in that. I mean, it's a lot better than this winging up through there and losing an animal or having a really, really difficult blood trail when you could have just waited and had a better shot opportunity. So that's about all I got to say about shot placement, but I'll always remember that from Hank Hearns. I don't think they even got Willow Point Island going on anymore, but he always is in the back of my mind every time I'm looking at a deer with a bow in my hand right now. And that's it. When I shoot one, I'm going to shoot him right there, and I'm going to put him in the truck 99% of the time. Well, that's just something for y'all to think about, and till later, we'll talk to you soon.